Greetings, everyone. This is Rock on Spot Connection with this week's installment of Mutant Monday. And, as the title suggests, we're going to be looking at the 6 Dawn of X #1s that came out over the last few weeks. So, these 6 books represent the first phase of Marvel's Dawn of X initiative, which is serving as something of a relaunch for another relaunch for the X-Men. And the last one was banner had the banner of resurrection, but with an X in the middle. Yeah, it's other examples include Regenesis. I wouldn't go as far as to say the Call of Decimation one, but at the same time, that also kind of sort of was one because it was kind of we're establishing our status quo, and we got a bunch of specific tie-in books but anyway, the big thing is that for the last few years, the X-Men have been sidelined quite a bit. However, because the right writer came along with the right idea, and totally not because the Marvel Studios now owns the X-Men movie rights, totally not that last reason, the X-Men got one hell of a reboot in the form of House of X and Powers of 10. And so, spitting out of that, we've now got Dawn of X, which which basically builds off of what's set up largely in House of X, as well as to a degree Powers of 10. So, kicking things off was Jonathan Hickman's X-Men #1. X-Men #1 focuses largely on the Summers family and, Wolverine. Story points. We see that the X-Men are still going after Orchis, the anti-mutant group that popped up during House of X that includes forces from former Hydra members, Hammer members, Shield members, and AIM personnel, as well as people from other groups as well. So they're still dealing with them, but I think they said this is the base that they're attacking in the first issue is the last Orchis base on the planet. And you got a strike team consisting of Cyclops, Storm, Magneto, and Polaris. The location they're at is called the Hub. But yeah, so it turns out that at the Hub they've been capturing mutants, and so gathered X-Men free them. One of them, however, is apparently one of the children of the Vault, and it looks like also a post-human in line with the post-humans we saw in Moira McTaggart's Sixth Lifetime. So, Orchis has the possibility to make those. And she disappears, but the X-Men get the rest of them back to Krakoa. Kind of hey, make sure everyone's okay. Stopping your office to see Dr. Reyes and say, hey, check everyone out, make sure they're all right. Whatever help they need, give it to them. Then the director of Orchis, Director Mars, has arrived at the Orchis Forge well after the attack. as as they're having a funeral for everyone. But back on back on the moon, where the Summers family lives, they're going to get together with their longtime friend Wolverine and the Starjammers. And they give Corsair a portal flower to plant in the arboretum of the Starjammer. So that way, if Corsair is on the other end of the galaxy and decides he wants to visit his sons, he can just step through the portal. At the Orcus Forge, however, and I was actually way off about this, it turns out that Orcus, it seems, has a portion of, at least a portion shard there, well, a shard of, or maybe the entire thing. It may have been shrunk down. Who knows? Of the Mcron crystal, and it looks like Dr. Gregor means he had to bring back, among others, her lover Erasmus, who was killed in the X-Men attack on the base. Then over Marauders, written by Jerry Dugan. And to be fair, I think I'm kind of leaning towards Marauders being my favorite of the bunch. Well, we learned that one, Kitty Pryde can't walk through the Krakoan portals. Why? No one knows, but she can't. So she, well, she basically steals a boat and makes her way to Krakoa. And she also brought some stuff for Wolverine. He gave her a shopping list. Ribs, Canadian whiskey, or to be specific, Canadian club whiskey. Beer. Cubano sandwiches from the wine cellar in the village. Pomade. And coffee. And turns out there's at least one gate that has no traffic coming through it. So Iceman goes to investigate, while Shadowcat and Emma Frost have a psychic business meeting. Emma has offered Kate a job. Basically, she would be the lead smuggler of Krakoa, which is very cool, to be perfectly honest. So it turns out the gate that Iceman investigated leads to Russia. Well, Russia is, Russia. And basically explained that they've got a soldier in powered armor who's protecting the gate along with regular soldiers. They tell Iceman that, Russian mutants don't want to go join your new nation. Of course, Iceman kind of mentions, so why are you protecting this place with guns and tanks if, no one wants to come? Well, it turns out the power armor that dude's wearing can nullify powers. And so Iceman beelines back to Krakoa. And Storm and so Shadowcat grabs Storm and Iceman, and they decide to head towards Russia, with Storm helping to speed the boat along. And in Taiwan, there's a case of a woman's husband who's disappeared after going into one of the gates. However, Bishop explains that Krakoa has no record of her husband going through the gates. And something strange is going on. As the Marauders, as Kate and her crew leave, they discover that they have a stowaway on the boat. Pyro, who was, it turns out, planning to steal a boat, but then fell asleep in the hold. Also, it turns out that Pyro was one of the first mutants to be resurrected through the Resurrection Protocol, but mainly to see if they could actually do it or not. So, the X-Men arrive in Russia, and Kate and her crew make short work of the Russians, injuring them, not killing them, just injuring them. I mean, badly injuring some of them, but still, just injuring them. Also, she takes the sword of a Russian officer, blows up the inside of a tank, or at least, or at the very, oh no, okay, doesn't blow it up. Sets off a couple smoke grenades in it. And she takes the sword from a Russian officer, and it does kind of look like maybe Pyro went a little too far. And Kate basically tells the mutants, "Hey, all right. So any Russian mutants here? We've run off the Russian soldiers preventing you from going through the gate. So hey, go on through." And they start to go through, and she also, makes a pitch saying that if you're a mutant and can't get to Krakoa, the Marauders will bring you home. Which Storm admits she doesn't like the name, which is understandable. However, Shadowcat kind of says, I was on the spot. It just popped in there. And with that, Shadowcat decides to accept Emma's job offer, which presumably also extends to her the third seat that on the council that Emma asked for. We also have some sinister secrets brought up. Some sinister secrets from the Red Diamond. We have one that very clearly pertains to Kitty, or to Shadowcat and her inability to pass through the gates. And that part of Hellfire Bay is the Red Keep. Or, well, not the Red Keep, because this one's something else. It's also hinted that not all former Hellfire Club members who were mutants have been brought into Hellfire Corporation. There's mention made also of the fact that some of the gates are being guarded by human soldiers to prevent mutants from passing through. And then there's a mention made of the fact that while Emma Frost is having a boat built for Kitty or for Shadowcat to use, she ends up just stealing a dude's sailboat and having Storm manufacture some winds at their backs. And that's the one that's kind of grabbing all the headlines. Next up comes Tini Howard's Excalibur #1. So let's talk. First off, let's talk about the legacy of Excalibur as a Marvel comic book, as a Marvel Comics title. So the first Excalibur series came out in the beginning of the X-Men boom of the '80s. In the '80s, there was something of a boom when it came to the X-Men books. Uncanny X-Men was selling well during the Claremont era, and then the thought occurred, hey, why don't we do another series about X-Men students again? So the New Mutants popped up. Then it's like, well, we really haven't done anything with the original 5 X-Men for a while. Working together for a while, so why not do that? And so along came X Factor. Then later on, Wolverine got his on a miniseries and then an ongoing title. And this would lead to an even larger boom in the 90s. But during that period, we also had Excalibur pop up. Excalibur focused on established X-Men names, words. Shadowcat, Nightcrawler, and Phoenix. Rachel Summers, now known as Prestige, as well as Captain Britain, who was brother of longtime X-Man Psylocke. There was his girlfriend Megan. Then Cerise, a Shi'ar operative, joined the team for a while. Various others joined the team at various points. And while by and large the lineup was made up of mutants, it was also made up of, you also had characters with more mystical past. For example, Megan, Captain Britain. And in fact, a lot of their threats were mystical in origin or even other dimensional. And in fact, they actually dealt quite a bit, though still on more vague terms, with Marvel's multiverse. But there have been other Excalibur titles since then, and to be fair, after I think starting in '93, Excalibur did start to lean more, and even before that, they were starting to move closer, little by little, to being in line and more closely related to the rest of the X-Men books. Other Excalibur titles would later include one that was set in Genosha after the Grant Morrison run on New X-Men, which saw the island decimated by Sentinels. This would focus on Xavier, Magneto, and a handful of other surviving mutants who were on the island. Then there was another Excalibur title that popped up. I don't remember exactly when. I know it was after. It was definitely after House of M. But I think it was at a point where I slipped out of reading comics regularly. But that was new Excalibur, and I remember the lineup included Juggernaut and Dazzler. Yeah, they had various lineups. So yeah. But like I said, it wasn't your standard mutant fare. It was more fantasy fare, which, to be fair, hey, it's the kind of thing where if you liked the X-Men characters, but you also but you wanted to see them deal with fantasy stuff, Excalibur was kind of a book for you. But even then, it was just, hey, Nightcrawler, Shadowcat, and Phoenix. Which, okay, that's not terrible, but it's not like it's the most unknown. It's not like it's full of unknowns, but yeah. So, Excalibur #1. First off, we've got a write-up about magics and things that Apocalypse and something Apocalypse said to the sorcerers of the world. As it turns out, Apocalypse is, after all, a sorcerer. The more you know, right? So the issue we get a little bit in Otherworld, which was Otherworld was commonly visited in Excalibur by, well, Excalibur. Morgan Le Fay, Queen Regent. Yeah, I'm sure that I'm sure nothing shady happened there. Is having a problem with her scrying pool. There's some weird plants growing in it. It's Krakoan flowers. So Betsy Braddock returned to the returned to her own body after the events of Hunt for Wolverine. It's a complicated thing. We'll just leave it at that. She's gathering some of her clothes, at least, to move from the family home in England to Krakoa. So, Apocalypse, so far, I'm actually really liking what they're doing with Apocalypse in Age of X. Or, not Age of X, in Dawn of X. Age of X is another story entirely, which maybe someday we'll talk about. Dawn of X, what they're doing, well, I like what they're doing with him because he's he's evolving as a character. And we're having to deal with the fact that not all of the X-Men trust him or even like him. Well, it turns out that the portal to Otherworld has been blocked. And so, in North Yorkshire, England, a coven known as Solar Blackwood is contacted by Morgan Le Fay. She shows them the flowers growing in her scrying pool, and they're like, "Oh yeah, that explains what it is." And they're like, "Okay, well, you know what? We can't have these flowers in my scrying pool, so basically, I'm like, hey, do what you can to make sure that they don't." On the island, Betsy is reacclimating. And also having to deal with the fact that her other brother, Jamie, is awake. But it seems Jamie is at least trying to be not the same psycho he was previously. This is going to be honestly. It's going to be interesting to see Jamie continue on. And so Apocalypse talks with Betsy about what's up, and she goes to talk to her brother, who has actually just got a call from Otherworld, and so the two go together. Well, Morgan Le Fay is like, yeah, so like, oh, you brought one of the mutants to me already. Cool. We can get this sorted out and maybe stop this mess in my scrying pool. However, it turns out that Rogue is needed by Apocalypse as well to help out. And so, of course, her husband, Gambit, does not trust Apocalypse, having been a horseman himself. Morgan manages to somewhat turn Captain Britain against Psylocke. But she does manage to break the barrier. Psylocke manages to break the barrier with a psychic knife or a psychic blade, and then she takes the amulet of. Well, she's given the amulet of Captain Britain, and becomes Captain Britain herself. Back on Krakoa, however, Rogue's wrapped up in a weird cocoon, and well, no one's really sure what's going on. But Psylocke is now. Well, she's now Captain Britain. And the leader of the Solar Blackwood Coven kills her fellow Coven members and then goes to join Coven Akaba. Known for having... and now, Akaba is at least somewhat related to... That's right, Apocalypse. Anything with Akaba in the name is going to be related to Apocalypse, somehow. Alright, next up we've got Jonathan Hickman and Ed Brisson's New Mutants #1. And it's a space road trip. We get Wolfsbane, her resurrection. We get to see the New Mutants talking with one another. And just, you know, also, Cypher is trying to use Mondo to bond. Is thinking that maybe he can get Krakoa itself to communicate in a more human manner through Mondo, but both Mondo and Krakoa don't like it. They try it once, and yeah, no. It does not work. And so they're just like, yeah, we're not going to try that again, don't worry. And then we learn that, yes, since Shadowcat's arrival with coffee at Logan's request, Krakoa has figured out how to make they've figured out a way to make coffee. And well, Ileana Magic is very protective of her jug of coffee. And so the X-Men, or the New Mutants, hitch a ride aboard the Starjammer. Seeing as how the Starjammer has, you know, a Krakoan portal flower in it, or Krakoan portal in it. And it turns out that the Krakoan portal is doing something strange to the other planets. In fact, Odd of the Starjammers notes that he's been working on growing flowers from his homeworld in the Arboretum. But ever since the portal was formed, well, they died. So, it turns out the Starjammers have business at a space station. And they basically, they lie to the New Mutants to get them to stay aboard the ship. Turns out they are the Starjammers are there to steal a brood king egg. So the New Mutants decide they're going to try and beat them to it. Of course, then the Shi'ar themselves show up, and the Starjammers are like, you know what? Y'all, you kids are on your own. Bye. And so Sunspot tracks down the rest of his team, and just they do manage to fight some of the Shi'ar, but yeah, they don't win, and they're taken into custody. And it turns out that Sunspot knows a space lawyer. Now, X Force #1. Okay, I'll be honest. Of the first wave, the book I was looking forward to the most was X Force, not X Factor, X Force. Benjamin Percy's X Force #1. I'm a longtime X Force fan. So, yeah. When the new X Force title got announced right off the bat, I was all in. I expected this to be my favorite of the first wave. Either it or X Men. I was not expecting Marauders to be my favorite. That said, this one's an odd one. I think the big thing is the team doesn't yet officially exist yet in the first issue. We got this interesting bit with a group of masked humans. They're cutting, giving a letting of blood to prove that yes, they are human. And well, Domino's infiltrated this group, and well, she gets found out because she won't join the bloodletting. But we also get an idea that what the flora and fauna are like on Krakoa. And Wolverine kind of makes point of telling Beast, yeah, I know it's paradise, but don't let your guard down just because it's paradise. Just because we're safe, don't mean you should let yourself get soft. There's also we also get a little bit about the security features. So we first off the green bonded alarm system, the function of which is that it's an external nervous system that transmits and translates plant intelligence and neural intelligence with the host, Blacktop Cassidy. You got two detectors: an aquatic detector, seaweed and plankton that skirts the island in a wide-ranging radius that varies according to tide patterns, approximately 25 square miles though, and an atmospheric detector, which is a cloud of pollen and fungal spores that surround the island in a loose dome that varies according to wind patterns. Again, about 25 square miles. Additionally, the spores contain motion-activated phosphorescence to signal location and shape of breach. Okay. Then we got a plant control interface that explains that Black Tom can transmit and translate neural intelligence to plant intelligence, and in effect control the external nervous system, activating the island as a responsive environment. As for additional precautions, all air and marine vessels, all private, commercial, and military channels have been diverted 200 miles by international mandate. And, well, good thing that's being explained because it turns out there's something on its way. It's Kate Pryde and her Marauders. And I love the fact they're doing some neat stuff with Black Tom's plant powers. So, Black Tom's main thing is generally that he fires energy blasts, which he focuses through a walking stick, a shillelagh. However, he got very badly injured years and years and years ago fighting the original X-Force team and Spider-Man. And it took some time, but he got patched up partially with plant matter. And so he had a kind of part tree, part man look. In fact, because of this, he didn't need the shillelagh anymore to focus his energy blast through. He could just focus. His hands included the wood material, and so he just could use that. But yeah, he apparently does have plant control powers, and so he's actually becoming much more important, I guess would be a way to put it. But he's able to create a boarding ramp between the Marauders' boat and the island itself. And we get the official and unofficial responses to non-treaty nations. So the official response is this: all those who have not yet signed the treaty acknowledging mutant sovereignty will be treated publicly as future allies who have not yet realized the benefits of the agreement. Firm but friendly democratic efforts will continue, or diplomatic efforts will continue. This will include weekly phone calls, monthly visits from Krakoan emissaries, educational propaganda blasts via radio, television, and internet, and invitations of politicians and business leaders to mutant-sponsored events in allied territories. Punitive measures will be mostly indirect, including increased tariffs from the United States and China. All of this assumes a stance of friendly disagreement, but any openly hostile behavior toward mutant kind will be subject to an immediate tactical response, pending discussion and approval from the Quiet Council. Now, the unofficial response: any attempts by non-treaty nations to secure back-channel conduits for Krakoan medicine will be arranged through the Black King of the Hellfire Trading Company. Failure to work with the Black King will result in intimidation, at his discretion, followed by covert punitive measures. Yeah, okay. Mutant operative cells will work to undermine the current administration. For now, their primary focus will be the extraction of all mutants currently forbidden from crossing the border and joining their mother nation of Krakoa. In Russia, this effort includes longtime X-Men Colossus. So, at Seoul's International Airport, a group boards a plane. Xavier briefly goes to Sokovia for a celebration. While that's going on, though, so the plane loses cabin pressure, and so I stated in my review when I went over the issue when it first came out that they looked to be members of the Reavers, a group of cybernetically enhanced soldiers that largely fought the X-Men. And have some tenuous links to the Hellfire Club, mainly because of some of the armor they're sporting. I'm not certain if they are members of the Reavers or not, but if they are, their enhancements are less obvious. So they jump out of the plane, arrive on the island. And they start killing mutants. The main idea being to... I think they got Caliban. Poor guy. There's Vanisher. But their main plan being to kill Xavier. And they do. And now we move on to the last of the Dawn of X Phase 1 releases. Fallen Angels #1. So, Fallen Angels #1 clearly is focused on Psylocke, or formerly known as Quenon. So I mentioned how Betsy Braddock is newly back in her own body. So, way back in the day, the X-Men went through what's known as the Siege Perilous. afterwards, some of them got jumbled around as to where they were heading, and for example, Havoc. No, that's not what happened. No, somehow Havoc ended up on Genosha with Amnesia. That had to be that had to be later on. But one of the big things was that Psylocke ended up in Japan, and Masaru Sorayaba, who has at least worked with the Mandarin on previous occasions, swapped out the mind of Betsy Braddock with the mind of his assassin Quanon, and so she was able to retain all of Quanon's training. Eventually, Quanon would pop back up in Betsy's body. She took on the name Revenge, and eventually died of the legacy virus. Sadly, then she came back. Quanon popped back up during Matthew Rosenberg's run on Uncanny X-Men earlier this year, and ended up working with the X-Men in their fight to basically take out all of their enemies before they were wiped out. She actually did prove to be quite helpful in that. Alright, so then we've also got Cable, Kid Cable, as the older version of Cable got killed by the kid version in back in Extermination. And finally, we have X-23, who is now back, who was given up the mantle of Wolverine, and has to deal with the fact that Wolverine, who she had the mantle of for a while, is back. I'm still holding out hope that the Wolverine title that's starting up next year will address the family issues. Okay, so the issue opens with young girl attaching a odd piece of tech to the side of her head, which caused her to, I guess, bleed from her eyes, and then makes her stronger. She starts attacking people, and on the train she's on, it says Apoth as just before crashing the train and making a massive mess, to put it nicely. So, on Krakoa, Quanon is meditating. And she's suddenly contacted by someone who explains to her that she has an enemy named Apoth. And so she explains she has to go take care of this person, but Magneto tells her that in light of Xavier's death, the island is on lockdown. Which I'm just going to say, I love how closely together the writers are working on this. The fact that let's see. Brian Hill and Benjamin Percy were able to work, like I said, so closely together for Percy to say, hey, so X-Force number 1, which comes out a week before Fallen Angels number 1, Xavier's going to get killed. But Maggie also maybe suggests that kind of talk to Sinister. Sinister, of course, initially suggests that she speak with Magneto, and she says, "Hey, look, he sent me to you." Yeah, it's kind of the whole thing of asking your parents. You ask mom, "Hey, mom, can we do this?" Go ask your father. You ask your dad. Your dad says, "Oh, what did your mother say?" And it's like, "Well, she told me to ask you." We're like, "Oh, yeah." So it takes some doing, but she manages. She convinces Sinister to help him, or to help her, and he suggests that she find others who are not comfortable in peace. We also get some flashbacks to her past before everything happened with Psylocke. So Psylocke recruits Cable and X-23 to help her because they're also not apparently comfortable in Paradise. However, X-23 suggests that she not include Cable because, well, Cable's a soldier. He's all he's known is war. He deserves paradise. So Psylocke and X-23 go to Tokyo to talk to a contact, and it turns out that the young girl that was used to destroy the train is Psylocke's daughter. And she was taking a drug called Overclock. There's a long write-up about Overclock, which is actually fairly interesting. They managed to track down the leads they managed to cultivate. And Apoth kills a handful of people, but not before using one of them to threaten Psylocke. Back on Krakoa, Psylocke goes to talk to Sinister. And she does offer him something he very much would want, Cable. And she tells him that she's going to need a team that's more than just the three of them, and she's also going to need Sinister's help to keep her actions secret from the Council. But she tells him, "Hey, you help me with this, I will bring Apoth to you. You can dissect him however you want, but then I get to kill him." And she tells so after talking to Sinister, Psylocke tells X-23 and Cable to find others that they can trust to be part of the team. They're going to be something of a covert strike force. I'm kind of digging these slow burns on Fallen Angels and X-Force. I'm also really liking how you've got a lot of these teams that it's not a case of where like in the first couple pages it turns out that off panel the team was put together. No. We get we're seeing in a lot of these cases a focus on they were there, like with the Marauders. Iceman was there. Storm was there. Pyro was hiding out on Shadowcat's boat. So yeah. With X-Men, apparently the focus is largely going to be on Cyclops and his family, which, hey, that's cool. That is totally cool. And Wolverine, because, well, Wolverine. Hell, Wolverine's not even in the second issue. Neither, for that matter, is Jean, or Havoc, or Corsair, or Vulcan. So yeah. But I'm going to be doing something similar to this again when all the Phase 2 number ones come out as well. I'll also be covering them during the weekly comic roundup as they come out. But and when the first story arcs, when each story arc concludes in all of these, I'll also be going over what happened in the story. Anyway, that's it for now. As always, feel free to like, share, and subscribe. Links to my Facebook, Twitter, Patreon, and PayPal can be found in the description box down below. Hit the bell icon to be notified when I put up new content. This is Rock and Roll Spock signing off, saying, live long and rock hard.